listening to the Wandering Womb podcast with Jess and Jaimi. Strong women, strong drinks, strong views, and strong language.
Hey, and welcome back. It's episode 2 of season 6. We were just... Did you just
I don't know why I just did that.
Why did you do that?
Because I wanted to go, woo! But I didn't want to be too close to the mic.
Right, well, I feel
so
like...
I kissed my teeth, and now I feel like I owe you all compensation.
No, I feel like everybody's had their sound effect off you now, and that's it now. You've got to behave yourself for the rest of this session.
Right, okay, so we're going to have to start off, before we introduce it. I feel like I owe everyone an apology for the bad quality of the sound effect in the last episode. Because I was smiling too much and I couldn't roll my R. So I've been practicing again all evening, and I'm going to show it you again at some point on this episode when the time is right.
We really are privileged.
I think so.
In fairness, there was that woman on Instagram we've just read a comment from a woman on Instagram saying that she listened to episode 1 of the new season, and that she absolutely loved your rolling your R. I can't even do it. I can't do it. I'm not going to attempt it. So... Anywho, thank you for joining us again. I don't know why, but hey. And we're drinking tequila.
Yeah.
We've already had a couple, 1 or 2. That's it. And then we've got 2 more to go. And we're drinking some tequila, and we are going to get into. I think this is quite a good one.
Yep.
I know you've wanted to talk about this for ages.
Yeah.
We are going to be discussing Not My Nigel, Not My Nathan.
Yep.
Which, for some of you, will be listening thinking, what the fuck does that mean? And for those of you, I'm just thinking about all the different countries that this is listened in. Mm-hmm. This is, I don't even know how common not my Nigel, not my Nathan is outside of British feminism.
I think
is it a thing?
I think not my Nathan isn't even really a thing at all.
I think that's a Jaimi thing.
I think that I was having a conversation with someone, and I think we came up with it then, just in passing. Unless they came up with it, or
do we need to cite them? Is that what?
Well, she might not want to be.
Okay. Okay, so then, I think we start off by you explaining what it means.
Okay.
If that's okay, whilst I have a drink. So, can you explain to our listeners who probably don't know what this means? Let's be honest, I think the majority of our clitorati probably do not know what Not My Nigel, Not My Nathan means.
I think...
Can you explain it?
Yeah. So, I think some of you, even those who've never come across it or heard of it before, I think that you will possibly have a bit of an inkling into what it is. So, the most common phrase is not my Nigel, and in feminism, particularly in radical feminism, women don't particularly want to talk about their husbands, or their male partners. So when they do, they refer to them as my Nigel.
Yeah.
Sort of almost like a term of endearment, but also because they don't want to make the centre of the conversation around their husbands in these feminist spaces. But increasingly, I would say, we have this conversation sort of, I don't know how to explain it, where there'll be conversations about, for example, the amount of husbands who refuse to do household chores, and there'll always be someone saying, oh, not my husband, and not them. My husband's great at this. And that's where the sort of phrase, oh, not my Nigel, which is sort of not all men are like that, but it's the sort of feminist equivalent of when feminists want to separate their husband from your typical traditional patriarchal man. But then what you also have is women doing it about their sons too, which is where, like, Not My Nathan comes, because Nathan's obviously much more of a younger name than Nigel. So that's where those sort of phrases come from. And I can guarantee that once you have heard of this, you'll hear it everywhere now.
Yeah, it's actually really, really common.
Yeah.
Also, just to go back to a point that you just said, that means it's sort of, its origins really are not all men. Not all men are like that, so namal. So it's like, that's its origins. And it just goes to show that even women, even feminists, will fall into that.
Yeah, not all men like that.
Yeah, and will find this way of being like, yeah, but not my boyfriend, not my husband, not my sons.
Yeah.
Which is fascinating because in some cases it's the same women that will ridicule the sort of not all men thing. Oh yeah, not all men, and then they'll be like, yeah, but not my husband though. He's different.
Yeah,
he's different from all the other men. Ever.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, we've got some questions written down as a guide, just so we don't go too off track. But the next question we've got written down is, why does this happen? And I feel like when you are a feminist, and you know, most women, even in feminism, even in radical feminism, are straight and are married to men, or, you know, have long-term relationships with men. I think there's this worry and this fear that you are not a good feminist if you are not leading a feminist life in all parts of your life. So if you are going home from feminist meetings having to do all the washing up, etc., etc., I think there's the worry that they will be seen as less than, in the same way that, like, women are blamed for men. They'll also make excuses for them. And I think this is, like, replicated across everything, like male violence and everything like that. And I don't think we should see this as, I don't know, like, an individual thing or a separate thing to that.
Yeah.
But I think we can better understand it by comparing it to things like that.
And then I think my view on why it happens is probably because, I think in my opinion on this is that I'm not sure if even some of the most, you know, I don't know, well-read and, I don't know, principled feminists, I really don't think they're ready for the reality of the fact that, yes, we are talking about your dad. Yes, we are talking about your brothers.
Yeah.
Yes, we are talking about your husband. Yes, we're talking about your 3-year-old son who one day is going to be a man.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's like, it's a bit too close to home. So that they can engage in the theory and the activism and the practice until it comes through their front door. And then when it comes through their front door, it becomes personal. And then they see their dad and their brother and their uncle and their granddad and their son and their husband as, like, almost like, yeah, but they're, you know, the men around me, they're different.
It's like to protect themselves, though, as well. Like, psychologically. Because
Well, yeah, of course. Otherwise, you'd be like, well, that means that my
even
dad...
in their private sphere, they are impacted by these things. And as much as we might want to think that, you know, our husband, boyfriend, son, whatever, is different, the reality is, and I'm sorry, in a lot of these cases, I know women, and I'm not saying this as a dig at them in any way, shape or form, but it's just an example that I know. I know of women where they've gone, oh, he is a good one though, my Nigel. And I know for a fact that they're abusive as fuck.
Yeah.
And it's that whole thing of, even women who are in the feminist space are still having to make excuses and deny
And protect.
that they're being abused. And I think that it comes down to, again, that they feel, I don't know, maybe embarrassed, ashamed, that even when you are seen as a professional or an activist, you're still just as likely to be subjected to these things.
But then, see, now, this is interesting because this comes full circle back to, like, some of my work in...
Exactly.
Yeah, like psychology of victim blaming, because there's a belief that the more you know, the more educated you are, the more informed you are, then, you know, the better you are at avoiding male violence, abuse, you know, that, like, if you know it all, then it shouldn't happen to you, which is bollocks. And I've said is bollocks for years. There's no evidence of that whatsoever. So, you know, you could, I don't know, you could literally work in domestic violence every single day, and you could still be just as likely to be going home to a perp.
Yeah.
Right? And there's an element of control there, self-preservation there, that some feminists are not going to want to accept that that's a thing. They're going to think, and they're going to want to think, no, I know all this stuff. I can see the red flags. I know my husband isn't like that. I know my sons aren't going to be like that. I'm going to bring them up differently.
Yeah.
All the men around me are safe because I would have spotted it otherwise. But they wouldn't have. And on top of that, they'll often have their blinkers on because it's someone they love.
Yeah. I think that it's sort of important as well in that to sort of acknowledge that it can be that severe, but also it can be as little as you are still, as the woman, the project manager of the whole house. He might help out with the dishes, but you are still doing at least 50% of the cleaning, at least 50% of the childcare, and on top of that, you're the project manager. So yes, you're Nigel.
Fucking more like 80-90%.
Yeah, but even when they see it as 50-50, and like all he does is told, yeah, because you're having to manage everything in that life.
Yeah.
So it can be as subtle as that, but then it can also be as severe as actual domestic violence. And I think that in feminist spaces where you hear these phrases, it really can be such a huge spectrum.
Yeah, it makes me think about things like porn, you know, like watching porn or sexual harassment, you know, like catcalling, making shitty comments on the internet about women's bodies, or all sorts of things where women will absolutely convince themselves that their husband, their dad, their son, their brother, that it just never happened. They're just different. They're just cut from different cloth. It's different. They would never. And you hear it so much. And like you say, I've got loads of examples where I can think of real women that I've known in my life or through activism or whatever, where they've said that and I've thought, but your husband is like that, or like your dad is like that, your sons are like that already. Like, what are you talking about? And I think you're right. I think especially when you're very much into, I would say, like, feminism and feminist activism, I think that, like you said, I think there's an element of shame around it, especially with sons. You know, like, because so many women will think, well, I'm going to bring up my sons to be feminist men. They're going to be allies. They're going to be safe around women. They will never treat women and girls like that. And it just doesn't work like that. You know,
but that's because also of the mother blaming in wider society. And then when you're a feminist, you're held to an even higher standard. When in reality, the external forces, once they get to sort of 12, 13, it's going to be very difficult to have the influence on them that you want.
Yeah, I completely agree with that.
Especially when you've got a Nigel who is like the other men. So the next question that we've got written down is, when do you most commonly hear or see it?
Right, so I was thinking about this.
And would you distinguish Not My Nigel and Not My Nathan?
Yes. I would.
Yeah.
Obviously.
And where and when you see it?
So, mainly, I think you get this online. I'm not saying it's exclusively online. I think it happens in real life. I think women say it in real life to each other. I think they say it to other people and all the rest of it. Me and you have had it. When we've been delivering training, when we've been giving speeches, you get women put their hand up, my son's nothing like that. And you're like, I'm not fucking talking about your son. Do you know what I mean? How have you sat there and listened to, like, a speech about, I don't know, victim blaming or misogyny, and then at the end of it in the Q&A you've put your hand up and gone, well, my son. Like, what? How have you related that to your son? And, like, the fact that you have is enough, really, to suggest that there's something here you've related to.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it does happen in real life, and we've had multiple experiences of that, and it can be quite hostile. I think it comes from a really defensive, unsafe place for women, where they're listening to you, and then they're thinking about their own sons or their own husbands, and they're just getting more and more irate listening to you, thinking, well, my son would not do that, and my husband is nothing like that, so you must be wrong. And feminism is wrong because my husband and my son would never.
They get worried that their son is going to be falsely accused.
Hang on, let's come to that in a minute. Don't forget that.
Okay.
Because you're right, but let's...
Because I think it comes from that place as well.
Yeah, there is. And also, if you go
like,
full circle...
Like trying to convince themselves that if their son is ever accused, it can't be real.
Oh, no, agree.
So my son would never do that, my son would never do that. Because we know, especially... You know,
but doesn't that come from internalised misogyny? That she believes that women are going to lie about her son assaulting, raping, harassing her, some woman.
So I think I think it definitely does, but I think that it's also like trying to convince themselves.
What, that they're safe as a woman, or?
No, I don't think they worry for themselves. As well, obviously some do, but I think it's almost. I don't. You know, sometimes when this is a really strange way to put it, but have you ever been in a situation where people are unsure about what the advice has been given by your boss or your lecturer or something like that, and then in order for them, and let's say people said, oh, we can't remember if the due date is this day or this day. If one person desperately wants the due date to be one specific day, they'll try and convince everyone erratically that the due date is the one that they want, no matter what. Does that make sense?
So what? They're trying to convince everyone else that their son definitely isn't like that, or their husband definitely isn't like that.
Yeah, and also convincing themselves of it.
Okay, but then to convince them... Right, hang on a minute. But in terms of coping mechanisms, if we understand it as a mechanism...
Yes.
Then that means they feel unsafe. Otherwise, why engage in that behaviour?
Of course they feel unsafe, but I don't think that's... They feel unsafe about themselves, but they feel unsafe that their son or husband may do these things to other women and then get accused and then get caught. And then that means that on the one hand, they are going to be upset that, you know, if they acknowledge that it's true, they're going to be upset that obviously it's happened. They're also going to feel like a failure, and they're because of the woman blaming and the mother blaming. But then also there's the internalized misogyny of these you know, and we've heard it before, these sluts, these slags falsely accusing my husband, my son, taking their life away from them.
There's something... Okay, right, so is there...
It's like entitlement as well, like they're protecting the men in their lives' entitlement.
Well, yeah, hang on. I'll put my drink down. And then it just see, the way that you've just described that has just made me think so many things, because it causes a load of other issues. So it increases victim blaming, because those women are then going to start attacking, you know, women who... Okay, let's just back up for a minute. So they're essentially wrapping themselves into a belief that it's not my Nigel, not my Nathan, and therefore, as you say, if a woman does come forward, if a girl does come forward, she must be full of shit. Because there's no way that my husband, my boyfriend, my son would ever do anything.
And also, all of these stats must be exaggerations. Because if we are to say that 97% of women have been sexually harassed, we know it's probably more close to 99.9.
Yep.
Then we know that must mean a significant amount of men statistically are perps.
Absolutely.
And statistically, somebody in their immediate family, and if they've got a lot of sons, statistically it's likely that one of them or all of them have been, will be, or are perpetrators.
Yep. And do you know what's fascinating about statistics and like how you relate them to people you know?
Yeah.
Is that if I was to put up a statistic saying, I don't know, let's make something up, like let's say 1 in 8 boys will be, I don't know, sexually abused or something like that, those same mothers and wives of these men would be like, yes, I totally agree, because this could happen to my son, this could happen. But then if you say, right, but also if we take huge samples of statistics and go, well, that would mean also that, let's say, because of how common sexual violence, domestic violence and other forms of harassment and catcalling are, that the vast majority of men have committed some form of like sexual harassment, catcalling, sexual assault, rape, domestic violence, coercive control, something. It's at that point they'll be like, yeah, well, the statistics are wrong. And it's like, oh, right, so like the statistics that serve you and your husband and your sons are right, but the ones that make you have to question whether the men around you are safe, they've got to be wrong, right?
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree.
You see it a lot on social media. I think you see a lot of it in comment threads. You know, when it's... So, I've noticed a lot of it. I don't know about this because we've not really spoken about this angle. But
male suicide stats?
No,
go
no.
On.
We know what happened when we did a podcast on that. That face. She's pulling a face. Basically, we were like so drunk that we had to delete it because it was terrible, and we never redid it because... just out of shame, frankly. It was so terrible because we were so drunk. But the least said about that one, the better. And so, face. Right, so I was going to actually say, before you dropped us in it, that...
I was just talking about some stats.
Yep. What I was going to say was that, you know, one of the most common times that you hear it is around pride, you know, and what I mean, I don't mean gay pride. I mean pride, like it'll be something about a woman who's like dead proud of her son, or it'll be like being proud of a husband about like they've done something mediocre usually. Or it'll be like, or I don't know, or worse, it'll be like a feminist sort of like posting up about how amazing their son is and that they've come home from school and said something like even like marginally gender neutral, frankly, not even necessarily very considered, but and then it'll be, you know, and like I think, see, I get this obviously because like we've got kids and we've got teenage lads.
There's a fly in my drink and I've just drunk most of it.
Did you drink the fly?
No, I spat it out. It did go in my mouth. Look, you see it?
Where?
There.
Where?
That black dot.
Oh, fucking hell,
I've had it in my mouth. There's been fly in my drink's been contaminated by fly this whole time.
Waiter, there's a fly in my tequila.
It's like that time when I drank a Monster and there was a fly in it.
Yeah.
That was a bigger fly, though. Why do flies keep going in my drink? Sorry.
Because they smell nice. They're like sweet and sugary.
How did it even get in there though? I've not even been around any flies.
She says reaching for her second tequila.
I am. It was in the grenadine bit as well, which I was really looking forward to drinking.
What? Like where the grenadine's like all collected at the bottom?
Yeah. It's nice.
That's vile.
What I was actually going to say though is the way that particularly like, well, not my son, not my husband, are willing to accept the stats around male suicide and actually blame women for men's suicide, but they're not willing to accept the stats around 2.5 women each week in the UK alone murdered by their partner or ex-partner. So we know, don't we, from a lot of the data that men's suicide attempts on a significant amount of them have been, I'm choosing my words carefully and I'm trying to stick to exactly what I've read, have been as a retaliation or as a punishment to somebody else.
Okay,
and used in domestic violence. So, for example, when a woman is trying to leave their partner after they've been abusive, controlling, after a woman's reported them or threatens to report them, we know that they will threaten suicide.
Yeah, and this is an uncomfortable topic because people don't want to get into it, because I think that, you know, with men, obviously, like, suicide's an extremely sensitive topic for people, but you can't ignore the bits you don't like, which is what Jamie's saying, is that, first of all, you've got the men who threaten suicide all the way through domestic violence as the perp, because they use it as a control method, and then they actually go through with it when the woman says, that's it, I'm fucking leaving.
Sometimes accidentally.
Yeah, actually,
there's been a lot of cases where they have attempted or thought that they were attempting and then going to stop, and then accidentally.
Yeah, and then it's killed them.
Yeah,
right. And then you've got the ones, as you say, that follow through with it deliberately because the woman's reported them or left them, and it is, and yes, fair enough, it is a suicide. Like, you know, they've killed themselves. That, you know, and it wasn't necessarily blackmail or anything like that, but it's as a result of their own abuse. They've abused somebody so much that that woman has left, and then that man's killed.
The amount of men who are reported to the police for paedophilia and for, you know, rape of children, and then they kill themselves before they have to face any consequences. And then what happens is, because before they're convicted, is it's, oh, look, it's another man who's died as a result of false allegations. So what happens is, often arguments are used like around, oh, you know, men kill themselves because they're falsely accused, men kill themselves because women use all the services, and men kill themselves because of abusive relationships, blah, blah, blah. But then when you talk about, well, what about the amount of women who are actually murdered by their male partner or ex-partner? And it sort of is like, well, I mean, that's when you sort of get the backlash around, well, look at the amount of men, more men are killed than women overall, yes, by other men. And then, well, you don't know, like, what she was doing for that. And you get, like, they'll be happy to victim blame the woman for why she was murdered, but the same doesn't apply.
Yeah.
The other way around.
I don't want to get into major amounts of detail, but I have at least, like, 2 personal, like, examples of what Jaimi just described, which is where a man has raped a child and then killed himself when that child...
As disclosed.
Yeah. Like, nobody necessarily that close to me, but, like, I know I know them, or I knew the victim, and it was, in both cases, the man, because he killed himself, was seen as the ultimate victim.
Yeah.
And in one of those cases, the man was literally celebrated as a hero, and he was given, like, a huge funeral. Everybody loved him, and it was like this tragedy that this child had apparently lied about him raping her, even though she was like 5, or even younger, I think. And then I think she was like 3, actually, come to think of it. And then and he was due to go to trial, so he'd already been charged. And then in the second case, the man killed himself. He threw himself in front of a moving vehicle, and the teenage girl that he'd raped repeatedly and had gone to the police was actually blamed for him, for his suicide. And in that situation, he wasn't necessarily, like, made into a hero like the other guy was, but he was very much seen as the victim of the teenage girl, and they're almost like she'd killed him. But anyway, we are getting massively off track, so writing the questions down did fuck all. But I think, so you get this, like, you're right, though, with this, like, not my Nigel, not my Nathan, a lot of the women who do this, the wives and the mums, they'll cherry pick what they will accept about men and boys and about male violence and so on, as long as it doesn't shatter their illusion or their narrative that, yes, all men are dangerous except for her husband, her sons, her dad, you know, that sort of thing. And as Jamie was saying, ultimately what that does is, if so many women are doing that, then no men are dangerous, are they? Because they're all somebody's fucking partner, dad or son. Do you know what I mean? So that leaves no one as perpetrators. So how do you tackle this? So there's like, the first question is, how do you tackle this when you see it happen? So say for example, if we were sat with a woman and she was like saying this and being like, oh well, not my husband, not my son's lovely, my son would never, my son's amazing. How do you tackle that if you're gonna? Because I know that some of you are going to be listening thinking, fuck that, I'm not going to fucking tackle that, I'll just let her live in a fantasy world.
Yeah.
Because that is easier, isn't it?
I think for me, most of the times when those conversations happen, it's when you don't know the man that well. And you'll be having a conversation, you'll be like, oh, and the wife or girlfriend or whatever, or mom will say, oh, I'll tell you what, he's a good and he is, I've chosen the right one there. He's never abusive. He's never this. He's never done this.
The bar is low.
Right. But like, and then for me, I've been like, oh, do you know what? That's so good. I'm so glad that she's got a decent son, husband, boyfriend, whatever. And every time, pretty much, I am proven wrong.
This is so true. We have had so many like women around us that have said that, and we've thought, do you know what? Yeah, she's got a good egg there. She obviously feels completely safe, and she's telling us he's a great guy. He's nothing like the rest. He's always kept her safe. He's always done this. He's always done that. And then you can guarantee
so many times. I mean,
something comes out, and you're like, for fuck's sake.
There is exceptions, but I just feel like it's just really hard. Because you want to believe that your friend, the random woman, you might have never met a person you're having a conversation with who's telling you that they're so glad that they have finally, or they have got a husband, boyfriend, son, whatever, who is really caring, really respectful, you know, not abusive at all, really, you know, just everything that you could want. You want to believe them. Of course you do. You want them to be happy. You don't want them to be in any danger. You don't, and no feminist wants there to be male violence and male abuse and patriarchy. So you would expect that there are going to be a significant amount of decent guys out there. And so I think that when women say these things, they're often saying, do you know what? I am so glad that I'm not having to suffer like so many other women. And then you're happy for them, because of course you are. So I don't think it's necessarily about challenging it, because I think often it comes from somewhere really internal where they're trying to keep themselves psychologically safe, but also be thankful because they're also acknowledging how bad so many women have it.
This is really interesting because you know me in that, like, well, you do, like, you know me really, really well. And what I'm about to say is that, like, I think people, okay, hang on a minute, how do I explain this? I think people think I'm a lot more confrontational than I am, or a lot more, like, I don't know, like, mouthy or whatever than I am. And I'm not. And often I'm the people watcher in a social situation. I'll say fuck all and just watch something unfold and sort of, like, keep myself out of it and sort of watch people and try and figure out motives and what's not being said and things like that. But there are certain things where I will gently have to say something because I feel guilty about not saying something. And this is one of those situations where I would have to really sit and listen to what was being said in this conversation if I was sat with a woman who was telling me that her husband is absolutely nothing like this, and her son is an angel sent from God, and like he's just whiter than white, and he would never I don't know, catcall, never harass a woman. He like the sort of like, I've taught my son about consent, I've taught my son about healthy relationships, I've taught my son this, I've taught my son that, my son's a feminist, and I'm just, oh God, and at that point I'm like, please fucking save me from this.
Yeah.
You know, and like, I have to be really careful because I just think, do I get into this conversation with someone who is ultimately going to be extremely defensive about what I'm about to say to them, or do I just fucking drop it and like talk about something else? But I think if you feel like you have to tackle it with a woman for some reason, you know, if this is somebody really close to you, or I think I don't know about you, Jamie, but I actually think there is one situation where I would have to challenge it, and that's where she's objectively wrong. You know, like so say for example you have a friend who you talk to all the time, and she's telling you that, I don't know, her husband puts her down, makes comments about her body, I don't know, tells their daughter that she's stupid, that she can't play football or whatever, and then like in another conversation he's like, oh, he's a great guy, he's such a feminist, he's not misogynistic at all, I'm so lucky, we've been together for like, you know, 40 years and he's perfect and he's such a great dad. At that point I struggle with the cognitive dissonance. I would have to say, but what about what you told us last week? Like, actually I think he's probably a lot like most men by the sounds of it. I mean, he does say these things, he does slip up, you do have to correct him, you have had arguments with him, you have had to challenge him. So, I mean, yes, it sounds nice to say that he's not like other men and not my Nigel, but, I mean, he is.
Yeah.
Like, I think in that situation I'd have to say something, because otherwise I have to sit there and be, like, fake. But I struggle with that. I don't think other people do as much as me. I struggle with, like, being inauthentic in a conversation and sort of nodding on, like,
I think I'm more the diplomat.
Yeah, sometimes.
When I want to be. And I think there's a time and a place for challenge. I don't think we need to really challenge people on their personal things, but what often happens in training sessions or debates or whatever, it's used to derail.
Yeah.
And I think in situations like that, it needs to be challenged, because
this is a good point.
If somebody is telling it you on a personal level, the chances are that they're saying, you know, from what I said earlier about, you know, acknowledging how bad many women have it and acknowledging that they might be in a better situation than they used to be, blah, blah. But when it is often used, you know, when we're saying, you know, 97% of women, blah, 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 and then they say, well, my son isn't like that, and my son can't even walk down the street anymore without, you know, being accused of sexual harassment. That's derailing.
Yeah, it is. And I think that's where professionals, especially, because that's what me and you do, we train professionals, if you're trying to teach them about a structural form of oppression nope. If you're trying to teach them about a structural form of oppression, you're talking about misogyny, you're talking about sexual violence and domestic violence, and then you've got, you know, women in that session putting their hand up and then relating it back to their son as a way to derail your session or to almost make your point look like incorrect, inaccurate, irrelevant, or, I don't know, like over-exaggerated. I mean, that example that you gave, I know what you're talking about. You know what you're talking about. That example was really difficult because that particular woman was absolutely certain that what we were talking about, what we were teaching them that day about benevolent and hostile sexism and about misogyny, her view was it had gone so far the other way. This is her view, not mine. It had gone so far the other way that her poor son couldn't even, and the example she gave was that, you know, he couldn't even walk down the street and ask a girl for a number and ask to take her out for dinner without her claiming that's sexual harassment, and that he's going to get falsely accused, and that she thinks it's like a hostile world for her son now. And, I mean, I answered this quite, like, strongly, because I think you could have heard my fucking eyes roll. I was fucking...
To be fair, there was quite a few...
in that
section.
No, that's true. There were people with their back to her who she couldn't see, who were just like, oh, God.
Not again, Linda.
Her name was not Linda.
No, her
just
name
to be
wasn't,
clear.
yeah, her name wasn't Linda.
She just made that up. Yeah, no, and I remember responding.
But equally, a lot of people agreed with her.
Yeah, they did, 100%. And there was women, like, across that room almost nodding with her and being like, yep, this is what it's like for my sons, my poor sons.
Interestingly, more men disagreed with her and more women agreed with her.
Yeah, so it was the mums in the room, basically, that were all agreeing that it was so terrible for their sons, whereas the men in the room weren't arguing about it.
They weren't.
But, yeah, no, so the response that I went back to her with was... I was just like, I just put it right back on her. I was like, so if your son, so let's say your son sees a woman on the other side of the road and he thinks, wow, she's beautiful, and then he decides to approach her, and then she's like, sorry mate, I'm not interested, and then he fucks off and just leaves and says, oh, sorry about that, you know, like, thank you though, and leaves, and is polite and is a normal fucking human being, she is not going to think that's sexual harassment. If, however, he doesn't leave her alone, he pesters her, he's like, oh, are you sure, like, are you single, are you sure you don't want to take my number, you're gorgeous, at that point that would be sexual harassment, wouldn't it? And even that, she wasn't comfortable with that answer.
No.
She felt almost like, what, didn't she use the phrase like, oh, how is he going to, like, meet his wife?
Yeah,
What, is that what
she did. Yeah, she did. Yeah.
And I was like, by not sexually harassing people in the street, probably. It was just, I don't know. There's definitely...
Linda, your son will be on Tinder. He's not looking for girls in the street.
Linda and Tinder rhymed. No, you're right, though. And then, I don't know, I just feel like there's been a rise in
Protect your sons.
Yeah, no,
like,
you're so true.
Like,
so
and there's a whole thing on the MRA sort of online presence, and you know, female MRAs where they're like, "Don't worry, Andrew Tate, I'm protecting my son from all these hoes."
Fucking hell!
Yeah, I've literally seen it.
Plot twist: their sons are 2.
They've said like, I'm going to protect my son from these hoes who are going to falsely accuse him. Don't worry, you're creating an army of mums who are looking after our boys, our future generation of strong men.
Fuck off, really? I'm so glad I've not seen this.
Just look under the replies of Andrew Tate's tweets.
I don't fucking look at Andrew Tate's tweets. I don't know how that dude's tweeting from prison. That don't make sense.
I don't understand it either.
I see. Oh no! In fairness, somebody shared one of his tweets today, and he said something along the lines of, "I can play 21 moves of chess in my mind and not forget where any of the pieces are." And I just thought, dude, what the fuck?
This is like that.
A woman quote tweeted him, but I've just not sex trafficked anyone. And I just thought, oh my god. But mainly, why has he got his phone in prison?
I don't understand.
He's tweeted incessantly.
I don't understand.
I feel
or
like
is he getting someone to tweet for him? I don't know. Is
I
there someone
feel...
coming on visiting hours? Is he writing his tweets down and be like, tweet this next, mate? And they're like, thanks, I'll tweet it from your account.
No. And then they're walking away reading them and thinking, for fuck's sake, this is fucking bollocks.
or Andrew Tate will get out of prison and he hasn't written any of them and he's like, for fuck's sake, Clyde, why have you written this? I said 2 pieces of chess.
It's his top G intern writing all his tweets.
Yeah.
Oh no, that's so fucking... It is. It's fucking scary, isn't it? You've got like actual women that have got like little boys being like, "Don't worry, Andrew Tate, we'll bring our kids up to be violent misogynists for you."
Well, it reminds me of something, but I'm not going to say. I feel like at this point I'm going to do my apology roll of my tongue.
What? Oh, okay.
Can you pause it so I can have a practice?
What, right now?
Yeah, pause it.
In the middle of this conversation?
Quick, pause it.
Fuck's sake.
Okay. Oh, what? You just heard me do it. You just heard me do it perfectly. Hang on,
Jamie, you fucked it up again.
Right, just wait.
Just wait for episode 3 now. Honestly, I feel like, can you even get through this season doing it correctly?
Just wait. Okay, just wait. Oh my god! It's like stage fright. This is how, right, this must be how men feel when they go to the urinal and they can't get any out until the guy next to him's fucked off.
That's not what that is.
I've got stage fright.
You do have stage fright, but...
And it's a podcast and no one else is in the room.
I know, it's just me and you.
I feel like you need to delete this podcast.
I'm not deleting this whole podcast just because you've made us sound like... Yeah, I was just about to say you sound like a Yorkshire Terrier. You sound like a Westie because the postman's come.
I'm gutted. I'm so gutted. Honestly, everyone, you should have heard. I did 2 attempts when Jess paused it, and they were perfect.
They were both perfect. We turned it back on, and Westie.
I feel like the world was never meant to hear me rolling my arse.
Maybe it's not. Oh, she's sad. Oh, God.
I'm just debating whether to try it again.
Don't. Okay, can we just get to the end of the podcast and you can...
Yeah, no,
maybe you get one more try at the end.
Thank you.
And then you can have one of them taking part medals. You know, the one they give all kids on sports day now because they won't let them lose. Was it participation medal or something?
I don't know.
Oh, fuck it. They're like, there's no winners and there's no losers. Fuck off, will you? You're not teaching them nothing by giving out 453 medals. Stop it. Okay, Anyway. I know you don't agree with me on this, do you? Every time I talk about it, you're like, oh, that's mean.
I think it's important to have, like, the winners, but I think it's still important to say, like, well done for trying and for taking part.
Yeah, but not with a medal.
Maybe, like, a bronze medal.
Oh, my
or, like,
God.
a green medal or something. I don't know.
They should get a chocolate one.
Yeah, but then all the other kids would be jealous.
Yeah, that's true.
I would purposely.
Yeah, I would want.
One.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't. Oh, you imagine, God, I came first and all got all these lousy gold medals. You lot got dairy milk. I'd be well pissed off.
Yeah. Anyway.
Okay, so the last question is: how do you make sure? So if you're listening to this and you are het or bi and you're with a guy, sorry,
Nice.
and so you've got a male partner. Fucking
Thank
stop!
you.
No, we said at the end.
Yeah, I know, but I did it.
Have some discipline.
I can't.
Okay, so if you've got a male partner or you've got boys, so you've got sons, how do you make sure that you don't fall into this trap?
I think just don't fucking do it. It's that simple. Yes, yes, you're Nigel. Yes, you're Nathan. Now stop it.
There's your advice from Jaimi. No, I must say, like, to some extent, there has to be an acknowledgement, as Jaimi just said. Yes, it includes your husband and your boyfriend. Yes, it includes your dad. Yes, it includes your sons. Like, if you're going to talk about systemic male violence, I'm sorry, but yes, it includes all the men around you that you think are safe. And unfortunately, there are going to be men around you that you're absolutely 100% certain are safe as houses, and they're fucking not. I'm sorry, but they're not. Yeah. And there's going to be men that you would literally put every fucking penny you own and all your possessions on, saying that they are not abusive to their partners, that they're great guys, that they're absolutely, you know, like, I don't know, whatever, on side, allies, feminists, whatever, and they're bastards. Absolute fuckers to their partners or to, you know, women on the internet or whatever, and you're not going to know. I also think, as we said, so, like, we've got teenagers, like teenage boys. I actually think you have to go...
Don't wish their life away. Only one's a teenager.
Fuck's sake.
He's only just a teenager.
No, he isn't.
Yes, he is. Stop.
No, he isn't.
Yeah, he is.
What have you done, like, forgotten a whole year?
Yeah, it's only a year. Anyway.
Anyway, so, so I think you have to go into it with your eyes open.
Yeah.
That, yes, it includes your kids. Yes, your boys, because they're being groomed and brought up in a patriarchal, toxic society, they are going to be misogynistic, they are going to be sexist, they are going to make comments you don't like, they may well even, like, do stuff, they might harass, catcall, sexually assault, they might sexually harass someone on the internet, fucking all sorts of shit might happen. And you know what? The best advice I can give you is that you can do absolutely everything you can, but once they're at a certain age, some of this shit is choice. Yeah. I'm sorry, and it's not your fucking fault.
Yeah, I know, I agree. I absolutely agree. And I think even before those ages, it doesn't mean that it's your fault. Unless you've said to your son, right,
No,
and this is what we do.
Yeah, but no, hang on a minute. If you're sorry, I disagree with this, because if you're a mom who has constantly fed into your boy's entitlement, and that you have literally raised misogynist yourself, as in you've said, oh, girls are going to lie, girls do this, girls do that, and you have embedded that culture into your child, to some extent you've got a responsibility there. And I'm not saying, you know, like, if they, I don't know, if they then became an adult and went out and became, I'm not saying that, I'm saying when they're a kid.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think so.
Because kids, I mean, I believe in tabula rasa, so your kids are born blank slate, and you literally create, you mould that kid. So if by 5 or 6 or 7 or 8, they're showing particular values or behaviours, they got them from fucking somewhere, they got them from dad, they got them from mum, they got them from...
The environment.
Yeah, from their environment, yeah, as well.
And as we sort of said, though, at the start, if you're the mum trying to do what you can, but your husband's a prick, which is very often... Yeah, you're going to... You know, even in, as I already said, even in feminist circles, most of their husbands are pricks because they've told me the things that they've done. Yeah. Like, you know, ditching them on holiday and, like, calling them names and, you know...
Abusing women on the internet.
Yeah, abusing women on the internet. Like, there's so many things. And then if they're trying their hardest to raise a son, it's not going to work if they've got that influence.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. It doesn't work.
That's excusing them, that is emboldening them, you know, that's empowering them in a negative way. There's very little you're going to be able to do.
It is really difficult if you're co-parenting with a misogynistic man. You've got your fucking work cut out bringing up boys. It's so hard. You what?
There's another fly in my drink.
That's not possible. Have you picked up the same glass?
No.
Go get the other glass. Is there two? You've got a fly in each drink at the exact same point. Jaimi, you've picked up. Have you picked? Oh my god, no. What the
flies in my drink?
I don't think you know what you just like sprinkled some in. I don't fucking think so.
God's sake, I'm gonna fucking die now.
You're not gonna die.
Have you not heard the rhyme?
What?
I don't know why she swallowed a fly.
Perhaps
maybe
she'll die. It's perhaps she'll die.
Right. Well.
And I think it's a little nursery rhyme, isn't it? I knew an old. Was it a new and old?
Yeah, but the whole thing is that if something rhymes, then it's true.
What, like, Linda, your son's on Tinder?
Exactly.
Oh, Lord. Okay. Do you want to try and do the thing? I can't do it, see, I don't try.
That was good, wasn't it? I'm really sorry, everyone.
You should be.
Oh,
you're getting there.
Oh, I can usually do it better than
I
that.
am excited when you can do it. Yeah, that was good.
Thank you.
That was good.
Thank you.
And so now I hope that is the end of that noise to some extent.
I hope the mic picked that up well enough.
To be honest with you, I'm sure it did. I didn't pause it. But then maybe next time you can have a different noise.
Yeah, maybe.
That isn't that, because that one.
I'm just going to keep doing this one now.
What, forever?
Yeah.
Don't you want a new noise?
I don't think I need one.
What about that woman who asked you to do the theme tune from what was it? Mario something.
Yeah, it was one of the Mario ones.
It was, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And she asked you to do that on your throat.
Yeah, I'll try it.
Cool.
I wonder what would happen if I did the throat thing with the rolling thing. Sounds like I'm drowning.
Oh my god, that was just... I don't even know what that noise was.
It's the noise of someone who's had 2 flies in the mouth.
I mean, can I just say, if those flies actually went in your mouth, you are exceptionally lucky that in all the different swallows you've taken and gulps
How
you've
many
taken...
do you think I might have swallowed, though, by now?
They weren't fucking hundreds and thousands. He's not fucking sprinkled them over your drink.
Oh, I'm so upset.
To be honest with you, I don't know how you've ended up with 2 flies in
each drink.
And I've got none. I did check them. I did.
Mm.
Mine are sound.
Good.
I don't. Yeah, thrown me that as a bit. I actually thought you'd picked up the same glass again.
No.
You seem really sad.
I am. It's making me feel a bit sick.
But don't you think? Aren't you lucky that the flies are still in the glass?
I might have swallowed some.
What? And there was more in there?
Yeah.
Nah, surely not.
What's the likelihood that there was 1 fly in each drink?
Fuck knows. I didn't know what the likelihood was that there was one in each drink at all.
I had 2 drinks, and at the end of the drink, both times I found 1 singular fly at the end.
See, my question then is, when did the flies go in the drink? And were they in the ice cubes?
Flies in the ice cubes, oh my god. Why would they be in the ice cubes?
Because that's what they do in those joke kits that they give little kids at Christmas. They're in crackers.
Oh my god.
Maybe they were frozen. Maybe they were from the Ice Age.
I doubt it. They were little fruit flies. Do you know what? I'm absolutely gutted.
There was fruit flies in the Ice Age.
Was there? What evidence do you have of that?
There was fruit in the Ice Age. Oh no, there wouldn't have been, because how would fruit grow? There could have been fruit we didn't know about in the Ice Age. Slush puppies.
And with that, I think that
the IQ has dropped.
Yeah, something like that. Thank you so much, everybody, for listening. We hope that you've enjoyed this podcast. I've really enjoyed doing this one. I think I'm going to try and go and get another couple of drinks.
Are you really?
I am.
From over there?
Yeah, from over there, I think.
Okay, fair enough. Not the bar.
No, where they keep on giving me flies in my drinks.
Yeah, that is the thing. If we make them in our room with our little stash, you won't get Ice Age flies in your drink, will you?
So, yeah, thank you so much. I think most of you might know now that we've surpassed over 100,000 downloads, which is incredible. And we all just want to say thank you.
I know, it is amazing. It is. And also, I would love to know your views on the Not My Nigel, Not My Nathan thing, because I think this is quite a relatable one.
I do. Yeah. Also, just before we go, the item is out, I think, by the time we publish this episode.
I love doing stuff into the future.
I know.
We're like, who fucking knows? Could have been a fucking meteor strike by now.
Oh my god, don't put that out into the universe. So yeah,
it's coming through the universe.
If you are interested, and if you are a professional especially, grab yourself a copy.
I'm excited.
Yeah,
it'll be, I think, by the time this podcast publishes, it'll be out.
Yeah.
Officially. And it's out all over the world.
Yeah.
Because it's on Amazon.
Yep.
Everywhere.
Yeah.
Like, we put it through worldwide distribution on Amazon Prime, so you can get it anywhere.
Woo!
That's fucking exciting, isn't it?
It's very exciting, and we've sold... Can we say how many we've sold?
What, so far?
Yeah.
On pre-orders, I think we're at about...
12, 1300.
Yeah, 1,300 or so.
1,300.
And we've still got... How many days is it until publication day?
4 days until publication day.
Wow.
I think.
4 days? No, it's got to be more than that, isn't it? Don't frighten me like that.
No, 4 days.
Fuck off.
Yeah, 4 days.
Oh, yeah, so go and get yourself a copy of Item. And if you don't know what it is, why do you not know what it is? Go on our social media and go and read all about it.
Yeah.
Because
if you go on mine or Jess's Instagram or Twitter or LinkedIn,
yeah,
you'll find it.
I'd love all of our, like, Cliterati followers to go and find us on LinkedIn. Can
Yeah,
you imagine us
that'd
all?
be amazing.
Oh, look at us all being professionals. Definitely don't all listen to this podcast where we get drunk and talk shit.
Somebody posted on LinkedIn today.
What, about this podcast?
About this podcast.
Do they not want a job no more? Right, we better go.
Worse podcasts.
Do you wanna cheers with your fly drink?
I was actually going to not.
Ready? Cheers, little fly.